Welcome to Project Me with Tiffany Carter, the podcast and posse. There is something special today for all of you people pleasers out there. And I'm a recovering people pleaser. I don't even want to go as far as say I'm recovered because that behavior and those patterns and those tendencies, those are rooted so freaking deep, you guys, that you probably won't ever get rid of that pull. But we've got to learn how to manage that because you will never have what you want in life by staying in that behavior. You just won't. And it's not super simple. So, of course, I brought on an expert so that we can have a real conversation about people pleasing and codependency. So, Krista Kokot, who is a beautiful friend of mine, also a client, and an exceptional, if I were to say one of the top life coaches you could go to for this, it's her. And she is a people pleasing and codependency coach. I brought her on so that you could hear both of us also use ourselves as examples, which is not everyone can do. It's not exactly a real flattering thing to be like, I'm a codependent. There is a major stigma behind that. It's almost like you're weak. You must have no backbone, no self-esteem. But it's a little deeper than that. So welcome, Krista. I'm so excited to have you on and having this real conversation. First off, I want to take kind of that stigma away. Do you know, I saw you nodding your head where you're like, totally. I mean, to say like, hi, I'm Tiffany Carter. I'm a recovering people pleasing codependent. Like, that's not hot.
No, first of all, thank you for that introduction. That was so amazing. I'm honored to be on your podcast and be talking to all you awesome listeners out there, Tiffany's crew. I'm nodding because it took me a long time. I've been coaching now, doing this for, I want to say 9 years, but it took me a long time to actually even say recovering people pleaser because there was shame around it for sure. And it was something that I didn't want to even admit that I was and that I had those tendencies because, and I'll tell you why, and this might resonate with some of you out there, is because I found it almost an accomplishment to be a people pleaser. I found it almost like I take care of everybody else. I wore it like a badge of honor. I take care of everybody else and I come last. And so I'm now realizing that's martyr. But so for the longest time, I didn't even want to admit that I was one.
Yeah, that's something I did too. It'd be like, well, I was taught, and I want you to share some of, your upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
I was taught growing up that if you really loved somebody and you really cared and you were a good person, that you put them first, their needs first, their well-being first. You sacrifice of oneself makes you a noble person, makes you a good person. Now, those of you who know my story, right? If you were brought up in an abusive household, that is very serving to a toxic, abusive person, right? They're basically teaching you, put me first and your needs don't matter. That,
Right.
in my opinion, is one of the roots of being a codependent people pleaser. Is you are taught that, it's actually a good thing to put everything ahead of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes we don't even need to be, we learn by actions. And when you've had a traumatic childhood or you've had, abuse in your household, it's not even something that you need to be told. You just know what to say, what not to say, how to walk on eggshells. You learn really quickly. And as did I when I was very young. I'll briefly just share a little bit, but because usually you guys, it stems from somewhere. You start realizing that you are looking for other people to be okay with your decisions started somewhere. And if you go back far enough, it 9 times out of 10 is childhood. And for me, it started when I was around 6 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old. My mom and dad had gotten a divorce and it was nothing major. They just divorced and my mom had us. And my dad wasn't happy with that. And so one afternoon he came and we lived with my mom and he kidnapped us from her. And I never saw her again for 26 years. And it was that moment for me that I abandoned the inner child within myself, first of all, and I became an adult. And I learned very quickly what to say to make sure my dad stayed happy, what not to say to make him blow up, how to act, how to perform. And I learned at 6 years old that if I did the right thing, I would get the accolades that I was looking for. I would get the affirmation. I would get the good girl, good girl. And so when I look back on that, that's where it all began. That's where the cycle began. And then it just continued as a teenager and doing the right things in a group environment to get those like, oh, she's awesome. She's amazing. As long as she agrees with everything, as long as I agreed with whatever everybody else was doing, I got the good affirmation. I got the good pat on the back. Then that continued on when you get married and you have your own children and you get friendships. And it's just this cycle that just keeps going until you become aware that you are resenting every decision you're making because you're living other people's dreams. You're living other people's lives. You're living to please other people. You're depending on other people for their validation. I was looking for everybody else. I would make a decision. I would own a business, or I would quit a job, or I would, end a friendship. I'd be like, is that okay? Do you think that's okay that I did that? I came to a point where I would I would want to change a color of my wall in my house. And I would have to ask my sister if that was okay, because I didn't trust myself enough to want a purple wall or to want whatever color it was. And I had to make sure that people around me were okay with that decision.
What were you also trying to avoid? Because I understand what you were trying to get, but rooted in this people pleasing, we're trying to get something, like you said, that external validation, the accolades, the you're a good girl, you're good enough. What were you trying to avoid?
Conflict. I did not want anybody to disagree with me because I didn't know how to have a healthy disagreement either. I wasn't taught how to have a healthy disagreement.
And what did you believe? And it's a lot of times this is our inner child. This isn't like a rational adult. What did that inner child in you really believe would happen if you, painted the wall a color that everyone thought was atrocious, or you took a different job that, people thought was irresponsible or crazy?
You just feel like you're going to get in trouble for not making the right decision. You feel like it's not, you don't trust yourself. This is the thing. You so don't understand how to trust yourself that I know the inner child she was very much like, I hope this is the right thing. I hope that I don't get in trouble for this. I hope that I don't get my hand slapped, or that I get grounded, or that I have to, whatever it is. So you end up not doing it, or you end up asking everybody else for their opinion instead of following through.
What kind of people do you feel we attract when we're in that codependency, people pleasing space, versus when you've done the work and you have healed?
The first word that came up was narcissist, because it's very, very people. Oh, how do I say this? I look back on my life and I think the people that were attracted to me were people that could control me, that I allowed. Gaslighting, meaning they would say things to make me think I was crazy. It was always about them. And I would allow that because I wanted to make sure they were happy. Because as a people pleaser, you will do anything to make sure somebody else is happy, thinking that's going to make you fulfilled.
I mean, you guys, I would literally, on my dating of the United Nations, while many people were married, I was not dating the United Nations for many years. I would lie about foods that I did not want to eat. And I actually like Indian food, but like they would go, oh, let's get Indian for dinner. And I didn't want Indian. It didn't sound good to me. I would go, that sounds great. Even shit like that.
100%. 100%. I would wear clothes that I didn't even like to wear just because I wanted to fit in with the people that I was going to be with. I'm like, okay, I'm going to wear those leather pants. Well, I freaking hate leather pants.
They're like leg prisons that make
They're
you sweat.
they are leg presses. And I'm like, I hate them. I can't bend over in them. I can't be me in them, but I'm going to wear them. Yeah.
Completely. Yeah. Cause I had a fear when I think about that. My fear was I wasn't going to be liked. And if
Mm.
you didn't like me, I was fucked in some way. Like that was the belief. It was like, if it was a boss, a friend, it could be a stranger. I mean, I used to, I mean, obviously a lot of us aren't traveling now, but I used to travel, I mean, incessantly. Like I had to travel for work. I was gone once a week somewhere on an airplane. So I'm very familiar with hotel life. And I would even go into like hotel rooms and maybe the room, like I was like, this wasn't like clean that well, or, things like that. Or I didn't like the room or something like it. I'd be terrified to even call down to the hotel and say, hey, like, I'm not happy with this, or even send back food at a restaurant.
I was just going to say that one. I was just going to say, this is what I work with my clients with, is even speaking up to complain about a cold burger or the drink's not made to your satisfaction. Another one is when you're getting a massage. I couldn't speak up for the longest time. I'm like, that pressure's killing me. I'm just going to grit my teeth and go through this. I don't care, because I don't want to upset her.
Even when they ask, because they're like,
yes,
is the pressure good?
Interesting. It's good.
I totally relate. I bet there's a lot of you guys nodding your heads right now. I super relate, because like I'm someone who needs like deep tissue, and like I can't do raccoon hands. Like if you have raccoon hands, I'm out. And it's like the people who like barely touch you, but you paid for like a deep tissue. It's like, oh, sweetie, you need to put some muscle into it. And I'm paying for it, and it's extra, and I'm not getting it. And the internal dialogue was, this is the worst massage I've had. I need more pressure. But like, don't complain, Tiffany. You're lucky to be able to afford a massage. You should just relax and enjoy yourself and get over it.
There's the should.
So that goes to, right? Now we shame ourselves for the things that we really want. How did that internal dialogue go with you on some things? Like, why didn't you return the burger? What happened when you didn't say, hey, I need some lighter pressure there?
That when you just said, you were talking about, like, Tiffany, you can afford this, like you just like first world problems, you've got your massage, you're getting a massage. That never entered my mind ever. For me, it was always about upsetting that other person. It was always about ruffling their feathers. They're not going to like me. And honestly, it really boiled down to, I didn't trust what I was going to say. I didn't even know how to do that. So for me, it was really finding my voice. It was really, really, like years ago when I started down this journey, it was really just learning to be able to say, hey, would you mind just easing up on the pressure a little bit? I was scared to death to say something like that, because I didn't trust what I was going to say. I didn't want it to come across as mean, because heaven forbid I upset them if it's mean. Or, you know what, this burger is actually not done to my satisfaction. I apologize if this is an inconvenience. And there is the apology, right? So there would always be the apology in there as well, which you don't need to apologize.
Hello, you guys. I know you fucking do this. I know you guys do this. When you're at the grocery store and you know how like you just need to get around someone. You didn't bump into them. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And then my voice even changes. Oh, I'm so sorry. Pardon me. Excuse me. I didn't even touch them.
I love that you say that you're not even in Canada, because Canadians are really bad at this.
And it's like, oh my God. Yeah. And I've trained myself, and I still think it though. Like it's an auto response to think it. It's almost like, oh, I'm taking up any form of space. I'm not even allowed to take up fucking space. So it like does come in my head, and I kind of laugh at myself now, like, well, I'm not sorry. Am I really sorry? That's actually being disingenuous. When we're apologizing and we really aren't sorry, that's disingenuous, isn't it?
Yeah, it's making ourselves small. We do it to ourselves.
Isn't people pleasing a form of manipulation?
Yeah, I just did a, yeah, we're trying to control what other people think of us is what it is. And that's a really hard thing to wrap your head around. It's a really hard thing to wrap your head around. It took me a long time to get my head around that.
I didn't like hearing that at first. In my,
Mhm.
I'm in a
Yeah.
12-step recovery program for codependence. And
Yeah.
when that was said to me, I was pissed.
Same.
I'm not manipulative. I have narcissists around me, active addicts, abusers around me. Those are manipulative people.
Not me.
I'm not manipulative. I'm overgiving. I am really caring. I'm the nice giver. I didn't like that. But I mean, really, it's not when we do things that aren't what we want to do, that is a lie.
Well, and here's the thing, Tiffany, and you know this just as well as I do, is, and you guys listening out there, it's like, I remember when I was younger, I don't know if I was a teenager when, but someone said, "Oh, you're really good at, people pleasing." And I remember, thank you. And the thing, you guys, is that we learned it as a protective mechanism to keep us safe. And then there comes a point where it's no longer serving you because you are living for everybody else and not yourself. And that's the key. And that's the awareness that starts to happen within people going, wait a second, I think I am pleasing other people. Wait a second. And it's a really, so when you do look at it like you're trying to manipulate other people into thinking you are a certain way, if you can look at it like that, it's true. It's exactly what we do as a people pleaser. We're acting a certain way so that people think we are a certain way and that they like us for being that way. And then when you start actually being genuine to who you are, it's like, I actually don't like pickles. I'm not eating another pickle in my life. I'm just going as something as simple as that. You might get somebody that's like, wait a second, what? You've always liked pickles. Why don't you like pickles now? Have another pickle. Just have a pickle. And the pushback begins. And that's where people go, forget it. I'm not doing this anymore. I like pickles. You're right.
Yeah. I mean, and our part of it is we taught people, using the pickle analogy, we taught people we liked pickles. So of course they're going to think it's bizarre when all of a sudden you don't.
I want to share this little story because this might resonate with some of you guys. It was years ago. I owned a fitness business. It was like 8 years ago. And I owned it with a business partner. And after 6 months, I bought her out. I was doing really well and loving it. And so after 6 months, I bought her out and she wasn't okay with it. And we actually haven't spoken since that moment. Well, I spent 6 months crying. 6 months. This is when it all shifted for me, was when I realized how much my worth, being validated, being liked, doing the right thing, all came to a head because of how much energy I gave to this one person that wasn't okay with the decision that I made. And that led me down the road of going, wait a second, something deeper is going on here, because 6 months I've cried. 6 months I didn't know how to deal with having one person that I knew of out in this world that wasn't okay with the decision that I made for me.
And meanwhile, that other person was definitely probably not crying for 6 months over it.
100% not.
And the energy that's involved in that and the power we're giving away.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of you know this. It's like, it's one thing to know it. It's like, but fuck, how do I change it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are some signs, first off, that this people pleasing codependency thing is like causing most of the problems in your life? What are some signs for people?
I think a big one is resentment. I think a big one that comes up for a lot of people is resentment. They say yes and then they get angry, or they say no to something they really want to do and they get angry. And it's a slow build. For me, it would happen when I would say yes to something, or I would agree to do something, and then I would actually start crying, because I'm a very emotional person. I feel things deep within my gut. And I would actually start physically crying, that I'd be so upset that I said yes to something that I knew I wanted to say no to, but I didn't know how to say no to it. Or I would be at a job. Okay, let's take a job, for example. You guys have a lot of working out there. And I would come home and be absolutely exhausted because it was tapping all the energy out of me, because I didn't want to be there. But I didn't know how to quit it at the time either, because other people had gotten me the job. I was making sure everyone else was happy around me. I'm like, okay, everyone's good. Krista's got a job. It's all good. But I would come home and at this time I wasn't huge on self-care. So I didn't understand that having a bath probably would have helped me at the time. But it would slowly build up this resentment, this bitterness. I would get irritable with people around me. I would have no patience. And that's just denying yourself a little bit every single time. You're abandoning who you are. You're abandoning that voice inside of you saying, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be doing this anymore. I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. This is, I think it's really watching for physical signs. Me, I would get a stomach ache. I always got a stomach ache, which makes perfect sense because that's your gut. It's your intuition, it's your wisdom, it's whatever you want to call it. And so my stomach would always get upset. However, a lot of people will get tension in their shoulders, or they might get a headache. It can even be like aches in the body somewhere. It can be in your knees, or it can be in, anywhere actually. And so a lot of times it's really just paying attention to what your body is saying to you, because it never lies, and it will know before your head will.
Because for me, it was like exhaustion.
Tiredness.
And I wore that like a badge of honor too, which is common for people pleasers, right?
Very common. Very,
I'm
very
so
common.
I'm so exhausted. I'm so exhausted. I helped this person with their resume. I helped this person move. I just helped, so-and-so get a job, and I helped this person write a press release. And
wow, Tiffany, amazing.
And I would get, oh my God, how do you do all that, Tiffany? How do you have the energy to do all that? And I didn't know there was another way. I really didn't. It was true ignorance. I really didn't understand that there was another way. And then I'd be truly, because resentment's rooted in anger, right?
Yep.
I would be jealous and resentful. And I'm thinking of, none of these people are in my life now because they were toxic. But I was so jealous of them because it seemed like they always got their needs met. And I never fucking did. Right. So I met their needs. They got what they needed from me and other people. And yet when I needed something, I didn't feel there was anyone catering to my needs. And I was very pissed about it.
Yeah.
And anger
was a big one too. When you just touched on anger, that's definitely, and that's shame, right? That's kind of for me anyways, because of my Enneagram, but that's and again, growing up, I was not allowed to show anger ever. So acknowledging that I was angry, even saying I'm very angry with this, that was a really tough one for me to get out.
I can relate to that. I was allowed to show that I was like down and depressed, as long as it, of course, had nothing to do with Mommy Dearest. But I could show I was down, and then I knew that if my mom did ask if she did ask what's wrong, I was trained to say it was something that had nothing to do with her. Right.
Oh yeah.
And that was allowed, but anger was for sure not acceptable
whatsoever. No. And the thing is too, is that, and for me, I've got two boys, that it really started to trickle into them. Right. So, and I've talked a lot about it with my oldest son, is that my people pleasing patterns, came into him when he was young. It was like, do not upset the waitress or the server. When you go into Walmart or whatever store you're going into, as soon as he would start to act up, I would get him out of there, because we are not upsetting the other patrons in this store. Like, we're not going to upset them. And so we've talked a lot about that, because unless you are aware of it, unless you can start breaking those generational patterns, they just keep trickling down. And I saw it really evident with my oldest, especially. And then when my youngest came along, I began a bit of the work. And so he's the king of saying no now. I've raised a monster.
I was going to say, it's a blessing and a curse when your kids know how to say no. You're like, oh God, maybe I did too good of a job. How did this show up in your marriage, if you're comfortable sharing about that at all?
Yeah, no, he was definitely a people pleaser as well. So we would definitely just meet each other's. We're like, okay, are you happy? Are you happy? But indecisiveness was like a 101. It was so annoying. And then I would get mad that he wasn't making a decision. Then he would get mad that I wasn't making a decision. And then I actually would end up just making it, because I'd get so angry. I'd get so up. I'm just like, can we just make a decision already? And so yeah, we got married at 21. And so it's really been a journey. Like, we've been together for 26 years, and it's been a real, we've been to therapy more times than I can count, the two of us together and separate, just working on ourselves and realizing that we have a voice. And I think the key for us that I will say is that we have communicated the changes that are happening within us between the two of us. I would come home and go, okay, just so everyone knows, I'm learning how to say no, just so you know. And it wasn't easy. Like, I remember at one point he goes, I kind of want the old Krista back. And I'm like, too bad, she's not coming back.
And that is a major trigger for those of us, because that is one of our fears. We won't be accepted as who we are. And we'll be abandoned, or we'll be rejected, or we'll be whatever. And let me tell you guys, people will fucking say it. So when that was said to you, I'm sure you felt that zinger in your body.
Oh, I 100% did. But right away, I had done enough self-love work on myself that, and as how do I say this in such I had done the work on myself to go, if people walk out of my life, including the people closest to me, I love who I'm becoming.
Oh, now I'm crying.
So it was one of those moments that, and we've talked about it a couple times, where I go, I love that I want you in my life and that I don't need you to fulfill who Krista is anymore. And that was hard for him to hear. That was really hard for him to hear, because we all like to be needed. We all like to be, in a certain way. But I feel it more today than I've ever felt in my life. But I remember in that moment just going, there it is. And it came from one of the closest people in my life.
When you can say that and believe it, and it comes from a grounded place, not like a bitchy place, right? Because when I was trying out learning to say no and setting boundaries, which we need to get to the boundary topic, because we know all y'all are horrible at it. The boundary thing, and I was learning to set those, like they say in the 12-step program I'm in, it's like a pendulum. When you first learn, you're kind of awkward. And so, I mean, we know I can kind of be, come on. We know bitch Tiff can come out. So
0 fucks given.
Right. Exactly. So then like that Tiff came out where it was harsh. Right. And a lot of people can't obviously receive it, but at least I was doing it. Right. But it wasn't received super well. It's like a fire hose of all of a sudden, no, fuck you. I'm not doing it. Like, you had all the anger and the resentment built up. Like, I know I did this for years, but I never wanted to, and all came out. Then the pendulum, could swing the other way, where I would be like just sweating and terrified and having to role play, going to set boundaries with my therapist, like a full role play. But what if they do this? And then what if they say this? And what about this? And going through all the scenarios. And so it's not going to look clean, but most people, they might not have even always said it, but because, I know you get it because you're an empath. It's like, I could feel it. They were like, God, that old Tiffany made my life a lot easier. Yeah, I bet it fucking did, didn't it?
Well, one of my favorite quotes, Tiff, is, I wrote it down so I wouldn't get it wrong. The only people who will be upset at your boundaries are the people who benefited from you not having any. It's my most favorite quote, because when you start to speak up and you're bang on about that pendulum, we do it with everything. Look at your fitness. People go from pizza and beer and smoking to, nothing. All of a sudden it's salads and water and cold turkey. And then you got to find that middle ground somewhere in there. Same thing with boundaries, is that, you've had leaky ones your whole life, where people have walked all over you and you build up that anger and that resentment. All of a sudden you're like, that's it. F you all. And I'm not doing this anymore. And that doesn't work either, because then you push absolutely everyone out of your life. But what is beautiful about that too, so if you're there, it's okay. Because what beautiful thing begins to happen is that you do start to weed out the people that no longer need to be there either, and that really aren't helping you. And then you find that pendulum where you can start speaking in love. You can start saying, hey, you know what? I don't appreciate when you talk to me like that. And I won't put up with it anymore. And I won't listen to you talk to me like that anymore. I'm going to remove myself. I'm going to hang up, whatever it is. And the more practice that you get doing that, the more confident you become in yourself, and the more you can start to do that. Another one that I actually talk about quite a bit is avoiding. And that was the one that I went to, because that was my go-to. That was what I learned.
I'm engaged to that.
Yes.
Mike is
Avoider.
Avoider. Yeah.
100%. So that's also what I have in my life, but that's also what my dad was like. And that, I had them around me. So I learned very quickly. I'm like, oh, we just avoid. Okay, cool. We just sweep it and then we'll just move along.
What is that? Is the avoiding a form of like, is avoiding almost like, I don't know how to verbalize a boundary because that's scary. So then I'll just pretend it doesn't exist. Is
100%.
that okay?
100%. We just think it's what it actually is. Avoidance is, and this is going to probably hit some of you, and it's truth because it's what I did. It's a form of manipulation of trying to control somebody else, because when we avoid, we take the ball in our own court. We're like, I'm avoiding. And when I get back to them, that'll be on my terms. And then I get to say how this goes.
So but a lot of times avoiders don't come back. It's as though the fucking issue never occurred, which is a form of gaslighting.
It's a form of gaslighting. And it's also when you have abandonment issues and you do that to somebody, that sends somebody into a tailspin. That sends somebody trigger. Yeah. Right.
That's the worst thing.
Right.
I had she's obviously no longer works with me. I had an employee, when I wasn't happy with something or they messed up. People mess up, right? I don't care how talented you are. And I would go, hey, this was a major screw up. We got to talk about this. Ghost my ass. I'm talking hard ghosting and I'm paying you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you do that to me. That's instant. You're dead to me. Like now the trust is broken.
Yeah.
Yet the compassion I'm learning for the avoider is where is it rooted in? Because I don't think knowing you would never avoid maliciously.
Ever.
Where is it coming from?
It was the fear. It boils down to that fear of conflict. It's the fear of, I don't even know what to say to them. I just know that I don't want to be treated like that. So instead of voicing something, instead of setting up a boundary, instead of saying, I don't like that, or even so say I was working for you and it was, there was some job thing or whatever, I'd feel like you were mad at me. Instead of saying, hey, are you upset at me? Did I do something? Instead of saying that, complete avoidance. Just don't even bring it up. Don't tell me, don't say anything. I'm just going to walk away.
Wow.
So it's that we're not sure what's going to happen when we rock the boat. We're not sure, but we do know what's going to happen when we walk away. We don't have to deal with it.
But are you dealing with it internally? Or when is the denial so big that you really aren't thinking about it?
Depending on the situation. If there was an emotional connection there with somebody, I'd deal with it huge inside. I mean, stomach aches and throwing up and diarrhea and like you name it. It was huge inside. If it was something that was like, I'm not even going to think about that, I'm going to disconnect myself I'm going to disassociate.
Yeah.
Then I was able to just walk away. Yeah.
So let's talk about when you are working with somebody.
Yep.
Or maybe someone, is applying to work with you and you're seeing if you guys are a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
What are some ways that you can tell if someone really, right off the bat, really struggles with setting healthy boundaries for themselves?
I actually have a bit of a quiz that they do for me, and it's 30 questions. And if you're above 15, we know there's an issue. And so that's kind of how I can tell, but I can usually tell within, and most people, when they come to me, they're pretty honest. They're like, I have zero boundaries, just so you know. That's why I want to come to you. So it's not like I have to do a lot of digging. Most people are pretty clear about it. People aren't coming to me going, so I'm good. I'm not codependent on anybody. I don't look for external validation for anyone. I'm good. They come to me going, I don't know how to say no to my own husband. I don't know how to quit a job that I absolutely hate. I don't know how to I'm constantly doing things so that other people in this world, I feel worthy. I get my worth through what other people think of me.
Your worth is rooted in external validation. I lived almost my entire life, you guys, in that. And I want to talk about how this shows up in business and in money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I had with my other company, which is, a seven-figure business. I had one of like my biggest contracts. Okay. I'm not going to name the client, but prestigious, big dollars. And I got offered an opportunity that you'd be an idiot to basically refuse. I was so shocked because my self-worth was so low, and I was almost shocked I was being offered it, even though I wanted it, that I was too terrified to have a new contract done. So to have something in writing to protect me, because I thought if I did that, it would insult this longtime client. Basically, me saying, I don't trust you, almost like a prenup, right? Like, I'm not going to get a prenup because that's me saying you don't like love me and I don't trust you. And that's messed up. And guess you can probably like fast forward and imagine what happened. Guess who that screwed? Me.
Mm-hmm.
Hard.
Well, it shows up it showed up for years in other businesses that I had. And when I first started in this, in life coaching, in coaching people pleasing and codependency, I took everyone with 2 arms and 2 legs because my worth was tied up in people going, I need you. I need to work with you. That's where I found my worth. And then, and I say it often, we coach what we continually need to learn. And so as the years have gone by and as I've peeled back the more layers and as the cycle has, and I've just thought, wow, even when I became a coach. So wherever you're at, you guys, it's like, I'm still learning every single day. And I love it though. I love it. It's just becoming so much clearer. And I don't need people to make me feel my worth. Do I love it? During COVID here, I finally got my professional life coaching certification after 10 years. And I received the email saying you're done. And it was like, a 3-month course or whatever. And I've been coaching for years without one.
Right.
Years. And I got it. And I thought, I laid in bed that night and thought, I feel no different. I feel zero different. And that was a beautiful feeling as somebody that used to need the validation to feel the worth. And so it was a really beautiful thing for me. I'm still so glad that
I love that you brought that up because so many people who come to me feel like they need more accreditations, more certifications, because that will validate that I am worthy to teach you or coach you on this area of expertise, right? It shows up in pricing, being
100%.
afraid to charge what you really want to charge because it might, some people might not be able to afford it. And then what does that mean? What does that make you? And it's like, well, I shouldn't charge that much or giving too much for free. I have to be very careful with myself. I am an overgiver, right? By nature, but I have to be careful because if I overgive, I feel it in my body.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Well, that was me for years, Tiffany. I thought, okay, if I just get one more certification, or if I just get this, and I never did it because I knew somewhere inside it wouldn't matter how many letters were behind my name until I felt it within myself. Somewhere within me, I knew that. And I mean, a couple of years ago, I started working with you and you brought it even up again for me, and I thought, yeah, there it is. It doesn't matter and that's the thing, Tiffany's bang on, you guys. And I work with people like this now. It's like, you can have every degree in the book and keep trying to get it, and it will show up. Stuff will keep happening in your life. And it doesn't matter how many more certifications you get until you actually feel that and do the healing and dealing within yourself to feel the worth, that you're worthy, just being exactly who you are the day you were born.
What can people do to start practicing, even, inching? Because I know believe me, I know it's scary. Inching at, setting boundaries. It's almost like you're kind of testing the waters. What is a safe way that people can kind of start practicing owning, their genuine needs and what they truly want, to just get a sense of how that feels without it being too scary?
I think the very first thing that's coming up for me is for me personally, I hired a coach years ago, and I was able to bounce things off of him. I was able to start articulating what I wanted to say. So if somebody was making me upset, he would say, okay, well, what do you want to say to them? Exactly how you said is what I would do. I would go, okay, someone's coming to buy my car. Okay, this is what I'm going to say when they say, no, that's too high. Okay, then I'm going to say this. Like I would literally go back and forth, and my husband would be like, you are nuts. I'm like, I don't care. I need to do this. Like, this is how I have to do this. So it's going to sound kind of cliche, but it's really finding those people that will make you feel safe enough to have these conversations like this, to have that. And if it's a coach, and if it's somebody, like I do it with a lot of my clients, I'm like, okay, you got to go talk to your husband. What are you going to say? I'm your husband. And then we have this conversation like this. Or for me, it was, I can remember the day, and I use massage therapy because that's where it was for me. I remember the day I was laying on this bed, and I thought, it's way too hard. I'm not even enjoying this. I do like deep tissue, but this was like where I was gritting my teeth. I was going to be, when you grit your teeth through the whole thing, you're like, oh my God. And I'm like, I got to say something. Okay, this is what she's paid for. It was this internal dialogue that went in she's getting paid for this. I'm paying her for this. She's not going to like me. I'm okay with this. I can do this. You can do it. Krista, you got this. And this is what happened in my head. It was this dialogue that went off. And then I went, Sarah, which was her name. I don't even know how many years ago this was. It's just a little bit too hard. Could you mind just going a little bit soft? Oh, sure. Yeah, sweetie. Sorry. Yeah. Just let me know. Okay. That wasn't that hard. Okay. That wasn't that hard. So it's finding those little things. It's maybe returning a flat Coke that you ordered. Just going, hey, this is flat. Would you mind getting, because you have to start small when you're somebody that doesn't even know how to do this at all.
Oh, you have to. And I wouldn't want you starting big,
no,
especially not having support.
Right.
And you guys could think what I'm saying right now is like self-serving, or I'm trying to like get you guys to apply to work with Krista. But I think you know me well enough that that's not how I roll. I'm telling you, it is true. I do not feel it is safe for you to really work on this. If you're true resonating with everything we're talking about, to try to do this on your own. No, I don't think it's safe. Like you need a therapist and Krista, you need to have someone who really gets it, because you are going to have people in your life, strangers, those close to you. Some people, like when you stop pleasing others stop being pleased. Okay. You're going to have people that get nasty, who eventually you'll probably remove them from your life. Some people are not safe, truly not safe to even bother. So you've got to have that support system to do it. I mean, I think you'd be safe like at a massage or returning a hamburger. Like, that's a great place to start. But when you're doing the bigger stuff, I really feel it's dangerous.
I can remember coming home and sitting down, like I had mentioned, and I said to my husband, I'm like, okay, I don't know how this is going to come out, but I need to start speaking up. I need to start saying what I want, what I don't want. For too many years, I've just let it go, and I'm starting to build up resentment towards you, towards the boys. I'm not happy towards my job. I don't know how this is going to come out. And that's how I couched it. I would preface it like that. And still to this day, you guys, I've been doing this for years now, and I still will come home and I still sit down. I'll go, okay, babe, I got to talk about what's going on inside of me. And I'm just not sure how this is going to come out. So just bear with me. And now he's used to it. And he's like, hey, bring it. Let's discuss it. But at the time, I was scared to death to rock that boat because I didn't know. And it wasn't that I was scared they were going to walk out of my life when I first began, but it was this unknown territory. It was an unknown territory. I had mastered, and we master the comfort of we know the uncomfortable. We can master, we've done it for years. The not being happy. We know the outcome. We're familiar with it. Our minds and our bodies are like, yeah, been there, done that. I know how to master it. I know how to do this. I know how to walk this line. The new speaking up and the new you that you are finding within yourself and that you're hearing within yourself, that's all new, and that's not familiar, and that's uncomfortable, and that's the unknown. And that's like, okay, that's a little bit scarier than, and that's why that quote, right, is like, you have to want the change more than than being comfortable with the uncomfortable. Right. Yeah. So it's like when you are, it was that I felt safe to do with my own partner, though. Some people might not feel that safety, right, to do that with their own partner within their own home. And that is where Tiffany's right. You do need to to reach out and find those people that you can safely do it with.
And you not feeling safe might even seem irrational. I mean,
Right.
I went through, if you guys go listen to the episode I did about going to Sedona, it's probably in June time. Go back through that. I was terrified to tell Mike that I was doing that. I'm talking role played with my therapist, role played with my best friend, with myself. I mean, terrified to do it. And I've done a shit ton of work. I didn't want to make him feel abandoned. And that's another way it can show up is we're almost like trying to we're worried about having someone else feel like we don't love them, having someone else feel abandoned, having someone else feel rejected. And in turn, we abandon our needs and we reject ourselves because we're trying to protect them. And it's a beautiful heart to do that. It's a beautiful heart, but that's codependency, people.
Big time. Big time.
I mean, and it's alive and well. In my opinion, codependency, just like when someone's a substance addict, you can be sober, but you're still an addict.
Yeah.
That'll never go away, which is why you have to quit drinking or whatever your vice is for life. Same with codependency.
Yeah.
It is a progressive disease as well. It gets worse and worse and worse over the years, and it's always there. So you just have to be patient with yourself and just keep doing the work. It always shows up.
It does show up, and it comes in different forms, right? You may have mastered it maybe with one person or with one thing or whatever, and then it's like shows up again, and then it might show up again. And the more clarity you get around yourself and the more awareness you get, like what you said, the more work you do, the quicker you can spot it. The quicker you can spot it and go, oh, wait a second, I'm living for this person. Oh, damn, I'm back.
Right. And you might, right. Like I catch it sometimes before. Sometimes it's like, as the words come out, there's literally like some kind of like a dancing animal, like doing jazz hands, like, and you're codependent again. And I'm like, oh God. And it's like happening while I'm talking.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, that's better. If you guys are loving this discussion, I know it's some serious real talk. I know it's probably pissed some of you off, which with all, good intentions there. Take a screenshot, share this episode on Instagram and tag both of us. So, I'm at Project Me with Tiffany. Krista is at I am Krista Kokot, and it's Kokot for those of you who are multitasking and apparently showering and naked while listening to me, because that is the number one answer. So that means thousands of you are actually showering right now listening to us. So I understand that you might not take the screenshot in the shower, or though you might.
And you're looking pretty good. You're looking pretty good.
Yeah, you might. You might. You might be like, I'm going to let this face wash sit on here for a while. You might, but if you can't remember Krista's handle, mine at Project Me with Tiffany, and then I'll still reshare it on social media and tag her. Guaranteed, there is someone else in your life that that needs to hear this. And if anything, don't you feel validated from hearing this? If I heard this episode, Krista, if you heard this episode X many years ago, wouldn't it have made you feel kind of less alone in your madness?
Oh my gosh. In my craziness, I'm not the only person that's like this. And the thing that I have come to really realize with this work that I do, we all have it in us to a little bit. We all want to people please. Every single one of us has it in it to a little degree. Some of us just have it to where it's a detriment to us and keeps us from living the life we want to live.
Do you feel that the reason a lot of people who have dreams of, obviously, my listeners are either they have a business, they want to start a business, they want to do something, they're at all different stages. Do you feel like what prevents people from showing up and going all in on their business, or that dream of writing a book or whatever it may be, do you think that there's some of the people pleasing codependency that's rooted in there?
100%. That's not even, it's 100%. I see it. I hear it. I've been there. It's what are people going to think? Say you're a big, big business person and you're a CEO and you've got millions and millions and millions, and maybe you don't, maybe you do, but you want to transition to go online. What are people going to think when I go online? Or I've got all this schooling behind me, but man, do I ever want to teach art to kids? God, I want to teach art to kids because that is where I get my joy. But I'm an engineer of a massive firm, or I'm whatever it is. And it's like, what are people going to think when I do that?
I mean, it took me 10 years from having the idea to starting Project Me for all those things.
Yeah.
It was like, who do I think I am? People are going to think I'm nuts. They're going to think I have that I'm a narcissist,
Right.
right? Especially with like a personal brand or being an author or a public speaker. It's like all about me, 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 me. And it's like, now they're going to think I'm a narcissist. Doesn't sound, my other business, that was still scary, but not as scary because it's very, corporate and socially acceptable. And it's not really like kind of outside the norm.
Right. And it's more when it's outside the norm that it's really people get scared. I'm writing my memoir right now, you guys. And to be honest, my dad has passed away, so I don't have to worry about him. But my mom is still here. And I'm like, oh, what is she going to think when I say, I mean, I've got two moms. I got a real mom and a stepmom, but those all play in my head still. And this is where, for me, it's still a journey, but those are the two that I'm like, oh, okay, what are they going to think when I write this? It's my life. It's my truth. And I still have those playing in my head.
And by not doing it, what you guys want to do in your heart, you're denying yourselves and abandoning yourselves in order to please the quote unquote they, right?
They.
And a lot of times we're not accurate. I mean, I'm certain my mom would not love to read the book that I have in my head. But aside from that, what will I was worried about what my pharmaceutical, conservative medical clients would think with starting Project Me. That was part of my fear is, it's like Tiffany's, dancing and throwing an F-bomb. And it's like, I'm going to lose clients over here. That was my whole thing. And I had to get to a point of, so I'm going to deny all the people I want to help and serve. I want to deny what's on my heart and what lights me up in order to make sure things are okay over here while robbing myself. Do I want to do that trade? Ask yourself.
Right.
You're making a trade. Everything's a trade, really, in life, right? There's a catch with everything.
And here's the thing to you guys. What I have noticed, I've quit many jobs, 9-to-5 jobs. I've finally learned years ago that I was not wired to work for somebody else. But what I have found is that when you do finally get up the nerve to pivot, to make that one step, you inspire far more people than you do piss off. You inspire, and they might not tell you. This is the thing. They might not tell you that, but they're watching you, and they're watching me, and they're watching the steps that you make, and you want to make that move, and you're not happy anymore, and you want to make that decision. You want to cut those ties. You want to, let me tell you how many people actually go, oh shit, she did it. I'm doing it too then. They may not say it, but they're watching you. And that is what I hang on to 99% of the time.
Well, you inspired me to get my breast implants removed, and you chose to share that publicly. A lot of people, and I'm not judging them. A lot of people choose not to, but you chose to share that publicly and in detail and in your way, because it's very real. And it made me, would I have probably gotten it done anyway eventually? Yes, but it made me feel safer, because as an Enneagram 6, I need to know the good, bad, and the ugly of everything. That's why I always share the good, bad, and the ugly with you guys. It makes me feel safe, so I know what could happen. And you've been such a beautiful support, and I'm so grateful for you during this, because this is not an easy process. And because you're honest about your journey, not just the pretty parts, it makes me go, okay, I'm safe. Like, I'm safe. This is normal. And that's why it's so important, you guys, we share. And I'm not saying you have to share things you're not comfortable with, but by not sharing it, imagine if Krista didn't share this. I have another client who shared with me as well, and even like showed me her boobs and stuff like it. I made it real, right? Because these are people I knew and I trusted. It might have been another year before I'd done this.
Mm-hmm. I am so, so proud of you. I know we've had lots of messages back and forth, but I know what a big step it was. It was for me too, but it was one of those things I was like, I was so done with my implants. They were covering up so much of who I was. And I know that that's a whole nother podcast for sure. But yeah, when you finally had them out, I was like, oh God, she's on a brand new journey. And I was just so proud of you.
It's a whole another level.
Yeah.
And I bring that up only because I want to just touch on the physical part. That we do stuff to our bodies for external validation, right? Why? But then we trick ourselves in thinking, oh, it's for us, right? It's for us. And some things are. I did not need breast implants. Maybe I could have had a lift, maybe if I really wanted it. I did not need them. I got caught up in living in LA and everyone is spaghetti and meatballs here. I live in that land. And it was like, I wanted to have like porn star boobs. Well, that really wasn't for myself.
That visual is good. Oh my God.
It wasn't for myself. And the surgeon convinced me, even though I was already a C, he convinced me because of my codependency. He convinced me that instead of me getting a lift, you put an implant and you make them bigger, it naturally lifts them.
Oh.
Which, whatever.
Whatever.
I remember sitting there going, I get what he's saying, but it kind of seems silly. Shouldn't I just get a lift? And he's like, well, you're going to have those big scars if you get a lift, and you're single and blah, 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 blah. And so I didn't just get the lift because of something external. I was like, oh yeah, like no guys will want, the Tiffany with big lift scars. So
isn't it interesting? You knew even then, years ago, you knew, like you internally, you knew, you're like, no, a lift is fine. I'd be happy with a lift.
But I didn't trust myself. Like you said in the beginning of this, I trusted an authority figure, right? Like a surgeon or someone who I would do that with people at a lot more money than me. Oh, they must know more than me. They must know more than my intuition, or they're older than me. They must know more than my intuition. They're prettier than me. They're smarter than me. They must know more.
Right. Right. And I got mine because I was in the depths of grief. My dad had just passed away a year ago. And I thought, this will help. This will fix it. And you stated something so beautifully in one of our conversations back and forth. And I was grieving so deeply because it was a sudden death and I didn't get to say goodbye. And I had massive codependency on him. And he was the people pleaser, and I took these plastic bags and put them inside of me and actually covered up my heart, put them right. And you said that you actually put this suppression, and it's exactly what it did for 13 years. And so when I had them removed, June 9th, 2020, during COVID, it was this energetic shift that happened, and a healing took a whole nother level within myself. It was like, now I can fully grieve. It's crazy.
I brought this up, and whether you have implants, that's irrelevant, but you could be doing the same thing with your hair, the eyelashes, the clothes you wear, how you think you need to show up on social media, or you don't show up because you think you have to show up in a certain way. It's all shit. Basically what it boils down to is it's all shit. All that matters is what you feel is right for yourself. And that doesn't make you like a selfish, horrible person.
No, not
makes you an honest person. Number one.
And people are attracted to that. People can see, and you talk about this all the time, Tiffany, about how people can read your energy. They feel your energy through the computer screen. So you can fake it all day long. You can try. People can see right through it. People are attracted to vulnerable. They're attracted to real. They're attracted to the genuine you coming out. And that has probably been the biggest compliment for me. It is the biggest compliment for me now when people say, "Oh, you're just so genuine." I'm like, good, I've worked really hard at getting there. I've worked really hard at getting
Yeah,
there.
I would agree. When that and when you guys say like, "Oh my God, you're in my head," you know what I'm
Yeah.
and I always say it is my job to.
Mm-hmm.
And meaning like my honor and privilege to. Like
Yeah.
that is my job. That is what I'm, supposed to do, right?
Well, and we're that, like, what's so beautiful is like we've been there. We know this, but this is why we can be in your head. We speak because we're you.
Right. Exactly. Just maybe a little further down the line on
Yep.
doing this work.
Right.
Right? That's really the only difference. Again, you guys love this episode. Do us a favor and share it with more people, because really everyone can hear and benefit from this episode. Well, except maybe like a narcissist, because they can't hear anything. So we can leave them out. But take a screenshot, share this in your Instagram, and tag me at Project Me with Tiffany. Tag Krista at I am Krista Kokot, KOT. Also, you guys, just FYI, she has a great podcast, and you're going to realize why I love the title. It's The Love of Purple. So she also shares my purple obsession. Like, really is probably the only other person I know who is as obsessed with purple. Like, truly. So that's, you guys are going to love like looking on her Instagram too, especially if you like that aesthetic. But really what she shares and is going to speak to your soul on a very different level. So I want you to go follow her, check it out, listen to the show. How can people, if someone's like, "Oh my God, I need help with this," like, how can I work with this woman?
Yep. Go over to my Instagram. Like you've said, I hang out in my DMs over there. It's the best place to get to know each other. Make sure that you say you heard me on this podcast, on Tiffany's podcast. That's where you are, because we all know we get some creepers in there. So make sure that that's where you just let me know. Don't just creep around, drop in there, say hi to me, and we'll just start a conversation in there.
Yeah. And she writes back. I know when you guys hear episodes and people say that and they're like, "Yeah, well, I reach out to that person and they wrote back."
I do the same thing. I dedicate a certain amount of time every single day to make sure that I respond to everybody, because I'm passionate about my one-on-one connections, especially. So.
Right. And we're in this to help and connect.
Sure.
So,
well, and if I can help one person on this journey with this people pleasing and codependency, I'd be like, I work with 2 teenagers right now, and I'm like, God, where would I have been if I had?
Oh my God.
I know.
I can't even wrap my head around that. What a blessing.
Like and I tell their mom all the time, I'm like, best mom ever.
I probably wouldn't have dated the United Nations for one.
I just think, wow, to speak up when I was 15, what that would have been like. So
wow, is right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I love you so much. You're such a special gift to my life.
Oh, thank you for having me on. And thank you everyone for listening. Really, really appreciate it, Tiffany.
Bye, love.